Good afternoon everyone and welcome to today's webinar. It's Mike that's going through today's session. We have Molly on the live chat also, so if you've got any questions throughout today's webinar, please ask away and Molly be at hand to help. So what we're going to be covering is the returns process. So what falls under that returns process is basically returning from a customer return, returning from stock for a supplier return. So there's bits and pieces within there that will follow on. So it's basically, we're going through a customer return right through to a supplier return, and then if something gets damaged within your warehouse or you need to return it for whatever reason from stock, then we'll be covering that also. So just starting off, customer return is something that you will come across and is something you will have to know about, and making sure it's done properly it is key to ensuring that your Prima database is kept clean and tidy, and of course you keep your financials in order and everything. So the process that you'll go through is, we may come across in customer, just like this one that we've got here. You've got an order that's invoiced, it's been dispatched, whatever it may be. Prima has to think that the goods are with the customer, so it must have been dispatched within the system for you to make a return. So you won't be able to do a return on, say, a request on a line that's requested. It needs to be at least dispatched or invoiced. So the example we're choosing is this one here. So what I would suggest is within the returns, obviously the more information you've got about the order, etc., the easier it is. But as long as you've got something to identify the product, the customer, and I would say the order as well, it makes it easy to find. So in this case, this customer wants to return this full order, so we're looking for order 1002 for JA Stationery. So if we go into the customer returns, so movements customer returns, and then into the available lines on the top right hand corner, when you're in this area, you want to put in your company, so we'll just search for that company, and then you want to put in the order number as well. So if you're going to be returning a specific product, then you can type in the product code in here, and it lists basically any product code that customer has had. Or if you want to search, for a specific item on a specific order, you just know that it's a box of pens, or you don't know the specific code. You can just search on the order number, and it will basically return this that you've got. So you can see the item codes, the quantities. Now it does show individuals, so if you've got any pack sizes, it'll show the individuals within here. And then you've got your sales order numbers and different bits on the right hand side as well. So this customer wants to return this full order. So what you do once you've returned the search, you want to highlight all the lines and hit create notes. And what that will do, that will create us a fresh, brand new customer return within the background here, as you can see. So we click into this, and this is our customer return. Now, depending on your process, whether it's something, it's a direct order or it's something that you delivered yourself, you may end up having to do a few different bits here, and a few different stages you'll complete this at. So if this is a direct order, obviously you need to raise the return through your supplier. So your supplier is the one that's going to be collecting the goods. So what I would suggest, if this was a direct delivery and you need your supplier to actually get the goods, then you select your options, you can complete right away, and it's your supplier return that you will deal with to actually get the goods back, because you're dealing directly with the supplier. Now, if this is something that you have delivered yourself, that it's one of your drivers that need to go and get, you would go into the report tab. After selecting your options, you'll print off your report of your collection notes. You give that to your driver, and obviously on the next delivery run they will make a stop and go and get these goods. At that point then, once you've got the goods back, I would suggest completing. So if it's something you're going to be collecting yourself, leave it outstanding until you've got your goods. That way you know that it's sort of a confirmation that the goods have been returned to your warehouse. So what we want to do is we want to select an option from one of these boxes here. So you've got this box at the top, and then this box in the very bottom. So basically the top one is what controls the stock levels, and the second box is what controls basically the financials, what happens with that aspect of things. So what we want to do is select an option from here. So if you're going to be returning to stock, then this will put it back into stock. So if it's an item that we can resell that very easily, we can put it back into our own stock. So you just select that option. We've also got an option to return to supplier, so if it's something that you're going to be sending back to your supplier because you want a credit from them, because well, I'm not going to be able to sell that again for a long time, so there's no point in it sitting on my shelf. You can return to supplier. The final option is one of the final options is return to CRS system if you go through the core login. And then you've got gift to customer, which basically what that gift to customer enables you to do is leave the good there. So, for example, if you go to collect, say, a box of staples, which is a nominal value, it costs you more to actually go and deliver it in fuel and sort of your driver's time, then it's not really worth returning it. So you can just gift it to the customer. There'll be no sort of stock change within your system. It will just act as though, well, we're not going to collect it. It's not worth it. So that's an option you can select. So for this, we want to return it to the supplier, and then we want to credit the customer. So you've got two options down the bottom. So you want to issue a credit for the customer because they don't need the goods. So you're not going to charge them for it. Alternatively, if you did want to, in whatever scenario, you could send a replacement, and basically that would put these items back into requirements as a new line to purchase. So if for whatever reason you need to raise a replacement, you can do it through here. So just a quick tip as I save that, you can do this line by line as well. So if there's items that so for example the punch pockets, that you'll be able to sell them relatively easy. They're a fast moving item. You can go into that individual line and you can return that to stock. So it's not just a case of whatever is on the header that has to be the same for all. You can actually select it line by line. So you can be flexible in what you do with these items. So that's just something to think about. So you can choose them options as you go. So once you're happy with everything, you've printed off your report, you've gone to the customer, you've got your goods. You come back into this area, your driver gives you a collection note that's signed saying, yep, we're happy with that, we've collected it. We can just hit this complete button. And depending on your options within here, a few different things will happen. So in this exact scenario that we see, if I hit complete, what that will do, that will create an outstanding supplier return, and it will also create a credit. So if I just go into the lines very quickly and go into the links, you can see we've got an outstanding sales credit here, which you can just complete and email out as with your invoice. Your accounts team would be able to deal with that. But more importantly, it will create under movements and supplier returns an outstanding supplier return here. So if I just click into this, this is our supplier return. So it's at this point that if that these goods are going back to your customer, you would get to the supplier, you would get in contact with the supplier, and you would basically organise that return with them. So once you spoke to them, you can pop your reference in here. You can put some notes about the order, so an estimated collection date, whatever it may be, and then again you've got some options here. Majority, because obviously if you're going to be returning to supplier, you don't want a replacement. You'd be choosing credit customer. Credit required from supplier, not a credit customer, and that would basically put a line into the available lines of purchase credits to be matched when you get issued a credit, whether electronically or paper based. So if you ever wonder about the credits, there is a separate webinar on that. It's not something we're going to cover too much today, but just so you know, this is how you get, how that gets sort of filled and the credits are sort of generated. It's from here the majority of the time. So once you've spoke to your supplier, once you've dealt with that, it'd just be a case of you can leave this outstanding until you've either had confirmation that they've gone and collected it directly from your customer, or they've come and collected it directly from yourselves, from your own warehouse. And it's just a case of, again, once you're happy with that, just hit complete, and that process is done. So that's a customer return back to the supplier. Obviously, depending on what options you select in the customer return will depend on what you do. So if you return to stock, obviously you won't have to go through this process, but they're the options anyway within there. So that's customer return to supplier return done. So there's just a few obviously different options within there that you select depending on your situation, but it's all relatively simple and straightforward. So the next option and sort of most common return would be from stock. So something that's been damaged, or you realise, we don't need that no more, that's wrong. Something you're expecting to come into stock and hold in your warehouse. So you will find your items. So the easiest way is stock, and then products, In our case, we already know the item we need to return, but you would find your item, whether it be description, product code, whatever it is, you would need to know some way to find your item to return. Basically, what we do once we find the item, we double click into it. We want to go into the balances on the right hand side, and basically what we're doing in this process is marking this item as available to return. So if I go into balances, and we want to go into this batch records tab, select the specific batch, and obviously find the one that we want to remove. Now in your databases it'll be a lot cleaner because this is a test one, so you probably only have 1 or 2 batches rather than a long list like we have. But you want to find basically a batch that is general stock. So if it's a machine, you want to find a specific batch with a serial number. If you know the PO that it was ordered in on, you'll be able to find basically from there. So you can see example, this is one that's coming from a PO, you can see the PO number. So if it's that specific one, it would have to be general stock, a little bit like these are here. And basically what we want to do is within there, we want to double click into that relevant batch. You can split it if needs be, so say if only half of them have been damaged, or it's only half that you need to return, you can split the batch and then return a batch. But in our case, the full 11 that we've got here need to be returned. So what we do, we need to change this warehouse to damaged stock. That may not necessarily be damaged, but it marks it as unavailable, which allows us to return. So if I just hit save and close, you notice that that specific item, that specific sort of split batch, is now unavailable. And what we can do, once a batch sort of status is unavailable, it'll be within the available lines of our supplier returns. So once you've done this process of going into the product, going into the balances, changing that specific batch record to damaged and unavailable, we want to go into, again, movement, supplier returns, and then the available lines in the top right hand corner. Now once you're in here, a process that I would always advise is going into the supplier name, just put a percentage sign in for the time being. Then searching on your product code, your order number, basically any way that you can find that specific item, and hitting search. And it will list, as I've said, the basic quantity that you've marked as unavailable. So if you've got a lot that's coming from supplier returns, etc., that's basically marked as damaged, it'll be within here as a long list. So you can basically just do that search for whatever, but there won't be a sort of a long list of all your stock codes within here, just bits that are sort of unavailable. So once we found the item, we want to type in the supplier. So in our case, this is being returned to Val, but obviously you can select whichever supplier you're actually going to be returning it to. And then we want to hit this create notes. And that's that process done. You would get in contact with the supplier, you'll be able to put your reference into here. Now if it's something that you do need, you can raise a replacement, and that will put line into requirements to stock requirement, or you'll get credit from the supplier for these items. So it's a similar process, it's just a different way of actually creating that within the sort of the returns area. And that is the returns process. That's returns from customer returns to supplier returns done, and then returns from stock if it's damaged or unwanted. It's both the same process within the returns from stock. It's just marking it as damaged and unavailable, and then it'll be available in here to return. Okay, thank you for tuning in. If you do have any questions, me and Molly will be hanging around for a little bit at the end. But if you are looking for any sort of further training on returns, warehousing, stock levels, reorder levels, wherever it may be within your warehouse that you want to look into and start using potentially, or make it a little bit more efficient, please contact the customer care team. We're happy to look at training sessions and training packages for the guys that work in your warehouses. But apart from that, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.